Okay, the divisional round playoffs just ended, and it was massively entertaining. We had 2 overtime games, drama galore, coaches being fired just now happening. Sean McDermott, coach of the Buffalo Bills, was fired because of their inability to get past the Denver Broncos in their divisional round playoff games. But we had 4 divisional round playoff games that we got to see Saturday and Sunday. Super entertaining. Loved it. Let's take a look at what the bracket looks like right now leading into the AFC and NFC championship games next week. So, of course, we had the Buffalo Bills taking on the Denver Broncos. Then we had the Houston Texans taking on the New England Patriots. Leading into Sunday, we had the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Chicago Bears. Of course, in the AFC, our number 1 and number 2 seeds move on. So it's going to be the New England Patriots, the number 2 seed, traveling to Denver to take on the Broncos at Mile High Stadium. In the NFC, we have the number 1 seed, Seattle Seahawks. Of course, they will be at home. And the number 5 seed, LA Rams, will be traveling to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Now, most of the drama early on happened in the AFC games. These were your Saturday games. And the sad news with Bo Nix breaking his ankle or breaking a bone within his ankle in one of the last plays of the game. And even though they won it, chances are their season is over. Starting QB out, will not play against the New England Patriots. A backup by the name Jarrett Stidham is taking over for Bo Nix. Honestly, I've never heard of this guy. He has not started an NFL playoff game before. This will be his first pass in 2 years. And I've heard a couple of different stories of what happened with Bo Nix's ankle. I've seen information that's saying he broke it on a kneel down, setting up the game-winning field goal. I've also seen stories say that it was like the play before that where he was scrambling out to get a yard. I think maybe he lost a yard in that play. Either way, broken ankle, out for the remainder of the season. Jarrett Stidham has taken his place. Now, the number 2 seed New England Patriots, they are going to, in my opinion, absolutely run over the Denver Broncos with a backup who hasn't thrown a pass in over 2 years in the NFL. As good as the defense is for the Broncos, as good as Sean Payton has made them, they don't stand a chance against a backup that literally has been really a third-string quarterback most of his career and somebody that most of us don't even know. Bad news for the Denver Broncos. I hope they can put up a fight, but it's pretty much guaranteed. The New England Patriots will be moving on to the Super Bowl, and then it just becomes a question of whether or not Seattle is going to make it to face them, or it's going to be the LA Rams. What?
I have a wondering that is not closely related to football at all.
Oh, God. What is it?
The guy who got injured.
Bo Nix, starting QB.
Bo Nix. So
one of our guys we highlighted in our MVP video, he's not really in the race for it, but he will end up on the ballot and he will get votes for MVP. But yes, what is your question?
I'm just wondering, with an injury like that, is it typical? It's my assumption that athletes, they heal faster than, I guess, regular people from injuries.
Well, it's not necessarily that they heal faster, but they just have, of course, they have these state-of-the-art medical facilities and medical doctors available to them, and all the unlimited resources to help them heal more appropriately. So it's not that like they're superhumans and they just have the ability to heal faster. Yes, they're younger, they're healthier, so their body is more prepared for this. But yeah, he will heal quickly for it.
And he will go back out there and do this same rigorous type work.
Yes, next year he will be the starting QB for the Denver Broncos and most likely be a quality player again. Yes.
That kind of stuff is wild to me. And I just assume that it's kind of like one of those things, if you don't use it, you lose it. Like if somebody, a regular person, was to get injured like that, how likely, like if they were an everyday or every weekend walker, is it likely they would have that willpower to push themselves to continue walking, or will they take that injury and be like,
well, if this was your mall walker, chances are they might not get back out there into the malls to do their walking. Of course, they're going to be at advanced age, and they won't be making millions and millions of dollars to continue doing what it is that caused them to break their ankle. Also, in the case of Bo Nix, it wasn't like a severe injury.
Okay.
It was I think it's actually like a fractured bone in his ankle. So it's not like his ankle was like severely broken or anything like that. He was able to walk off the field. And the thing that really made it very interesting is that the game ended. The Broncos won. Everybody's excited. We're thinking the Broncos are going to really have a good matchup against what is now the New England Patriots. But it was after the game, Sean Payton, their head coach, had a press conference to announce that Bo Nix had broken his ankle and will be out the remainder of the postseason. He's going to have surgery on it, so on and so forth. So it was an absolute shocker when they actually knew, when the news broke that he had broken his ankle, because it wasn't apparent that he was injured during the game.
Got you. Yeah, it's just weird to me that these guys get injured and they're just like, oh, I'm out for the rest of the season, but I'm like right back a couple months from now and doing the same thing. Like, what?
Well, I mean, it's like any profession. But then again, like say, for instance, Dak Prescott, Cowboys quarterback, he had a severely broken ankle where literally like this was his foot. He broke it and his foot was facing the wrong direction when he broke his ankle. So that was a severe issue that was a serious injury. But an injury like that changed his game where he can't be as mobile as he used to. He now has to be in the pocket more because he just can't. He doesn't have the physical ability to move around because his ankle is forever changed. Along with other injuries. Is that a common
injury for quarterbacks?
It's not super common. It's an injury that happens when you start running, and I think when you're not really used to running, or you haven't been a running back all your career, you haven't been a wide receiver all your career, so you get tackled from behind and you fall to the ground, and the person that tackles you just literally just lands on your ankle, lands on your foot, and it just, you got like a 300-pound lineman falling on your ankle. It's just going to snap it like a twig.
Okay, that's all.
But yes, he will return. He will be good. He will probably be better for it because of the experience. But let's compare it to being a teacher, or let's compare it to working at a gas station. The gas station gets robbed. I mean, if that's your job, you need money, you're going to go back to that job, even though you just got robbed at gunpoint, where objectively looking at it outside of it, you'd be like, what the hell are you doing going back to that job? Well, it is what it is. You do a job, you get paid to do it, and you keep doing it unless something crazy happens. There are some instances where like a player will get injured or a player will get concussions and they'll retire early and be like, you know what, this really ain't worth it. But typically that is not the case. Now, let's go ahead. Let's start looking at some of these games that happened. So, again, the first game was that big drama game, which was the Buffalo Bills taking on the Denver Broncos. So, let's look at some of these stats and see how this went down. Now, this was a close game. This was our OT game. This was our first one of two games that went into overtime. And the fact that this was our kickoff game for the divisional round made it that much better. So, the final score was 33-30. Of course, Denver beating Buffalo. Now, let's look at some of these stats comparisons, and again, we talked about this last time. The statistics tell a story, but they don't tell the whole story. So total yards in the game, the Bills had 449 compared to the Broncos 349. So the Bills had more yards total. Passing yards, the Bills had 266. The Broncos had 279 passing yards. Broncos a little bit more. Rushing yards, the Buffalo Bills had 183 rushing yards to just 70 rushing yards by the Denver Broncos. And actually, Bo Nix was the leading rusher of their game for the Denver Broncos, so their rushing attack is really struggling. And then, of course, with your leading rusher now being out, who's also your starting QB, the hope for victory next week is very gloom. And then yards per play we see is 5.8 yards per play for the Bills versus 5.1 yards per play for the Broncos. Pretty evenly matched there. But the big picture here is the 4 turnovers by the incomparable MVP candidate Josh Allen. 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles for a total of 4 turnovers. And that is unbelievable. And like I said at the start of this video, guess what happened? Sean McDermott was fired, their head coach, after 9 seasons, fired because Josh Allen can't get it done in the playoffs. And let me remind y'all, this was supposed to be the year Josh Allen really took over. This was the year that the AFC was up for grabs. Patrick Mahomes did not make it into the playoffs. Joe Burrow did not make it into the playoffs. Lamar Jackson did not make it into the playoffs. These are the quarterbacks that Josh Allen loves losing to in the playoffs. This year, he had a wide open path to get to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, he ran up against a second-year quarterback in Bo Nix and was absolutely outplayed. And of course, I guess you could say their coach was outcoached. Shout out to Sean Payton for being an amazing coach. He's really going to have to turn it up next week to get this win.
Sean Payton sounds familiar.
He was an assistant with the Cowboys for a while. Then he was the head coach of the New Orleans Saints when they won their Super Bowl. So he has a bit of background, a successful background. And everybody was talking about Sean Payton is going to be the first head coach in the history of the sport to win a Super Bowl with 2 different teams this year. But of course, now that has gone out the window with their starting QB being hurt. So let's look at some more stats. I'm going to break down some more stats for you. First downs. The Bills had 28 first downs to the Broncos 22. Third down conversion rate. The Bills were 10 of 15 on third down. The Broncos were 8 of 16. Fourth down conversions, they were both 1 for 1. A number of total plays. The Bills had 10 more plays at 78 compared to the Broncos 68. The Bills allowed 3 sacks. There's a big difference there. The Bills allowed 3 sacks compared to the 0 times the Broncos QB Bo Nix was sacked, which makes that broken ankle even more disappointing considering he wasn't even sacked 1 time. The Broncos punted 4 times. The Bills did not punt. Penalty yards, 5 for 68 yards against the Bills, 3 for 20 yards against the Broncos. But again, the real story here are the fumbles lost. The Bills lost 3 fumbles, 2 of those being Josh Allen. And of course, he also threw 2 interceptions. So 5 turnovers to the Broncos, only 1 turnover. And there's your difference there. And you're going to start seeing a theme here. 5 turnovers by the Bills, 1 by the Broncos. And of course, who won that game? The Broncos. Moving on to game number 2 on Saturday. It's going to be the other. Is it the AFC matchup? No, this was an NFC matchup. Excuse me. This was the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Let's take a look at some of these game stats here. We see that for total yards, the 49ers had 236 yards compared to 281 by the Seahawks. The passing yards were 128 to 106, rushing yards 108 to 175, and then yards per play 3.9 to 5.4. And this game, as you can see by the box score, was an absolute blowout, 41-6. The Seahawks absolutely dominated here. And it wasn't their offense that was dominating, it was their defense that absolutely dominated the 49ers. And their defense looked absolutely scary. Now, keep in mind the 49ers were ravaged with injury. They had a lot of players out. And this appears to be a reoccurring theme with the 49ers year after year. They limp into the playoffs. Just injuries abound all over the place. And it seems like they always have a good team with Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy, Kittle, all of these players. But McCaffrey's always getting hurt. Purdy's always getting hurt. And it's just like they always go into the playoffs beat up and horribly bruised. Now, I remember a few years back, the Cowboys, they kept on getting hamstring injuries. Their players kept on getting pulled hamstrings. And a lot of noise came out of they need to fire their strength and conditioning coach, and they need to fire their trainers. And I haven't heard that from the 49ers these past few years, but that is a repeating theme for the 49ers. Going into the playoffs, beat up, injured, and hurt. Yet I haven't heard that kind of talk with the 49ers yet. Now let's look at the actual stats for the individual game stats. First downs, it was 15-19 in favor of the Seahawks. Third down conversions here, it was 6-12 49ers, and it was 4 of 10 for the Seahawks. Fourth down, nobody converted a fourth down. The Seahawks didn't even try one, and the 49ers were 0 for 3. Total plays, 60 by the 49ers, 52 by the Seahawks. Sacks allowed, they were tied at 2. Punts, it was 1 for the 49ers, 3 for the Seahawks. Penalties, it was a very low penalty game. 3 penalties compared to 2 penalties for the 49ers. And then again, here is that story that the stats really back up, that they really show who won and who lost here. Turnovers, fumbles. The 49ers had 2 fumbles. Seahawks had none. Interceptions, 49ers had 1. Seahawks had none. So 3 turnovers to none. Guess who won the game? The team that did not turn the ball over. 49ers lose. Time of possession was fairly even. Tackles, field goals, all kind of similar there. It's just these 2 first games on Saturday was all about the turnovers, and the team that won the turnover battle won the game. Moving into Sunday, the early game was the Houston Texans against the New England Patriots. And this will be, remember, I said a theme here, turnovers. We'll get to that. Let's look at the game stats. 241 yards to 248 total yards. They were pretty similar there. Passing yards, 193 to 143. Rushing yards, 48 to 105. Yards per play, 3.3 to 3.9. Very similar stats. The final score was 28 to 16. The New England Patriots moving on to the AFC Championship game. But the individual statistics, they're going to tell that story. That shows the Houston Texans have a serious problem. First downs, it was 16-13, pretty good there. Even third down conversion rate was horrible by both teams. The Houston Texans were 7 for 17. The Patriots were 3 for 14. Fourth downs, they were the same, 1 for 2. Total plays, 72 to 64 in favor of the Texans. Sacks. Now, this is kind of interesting. The Texans allowed 3 sacks, while the Patriots allowed 5 sacks. Punts, 5 to 8 in favor of the Texans, only having 5 punts. Penalties, another low penalty game, which is great. We didn't see a whole lot of penalties throughout the divisional round playoffs. 4 penalties, 3 penalties, which is a good deal. Turnovers. Let's look at this. This game was god-awful. This was a horrible game to watch. For both teams combined, guess how many turnovers there were for both teams combined? Guess how many turnovers?
I have no concept of what's a high number and what's a low number.
Well, we just said Josh Allen had 4 turnovers by himself. 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions. So that's 4 by one team, by one player. Mm-hmm. But both of these teams, the Texans and Patriots, turned the ball over. Guess how many turnovers they had combined?
Maybe 8.
That is exactly right. Once again, 8 turnovers. 5 by the Texans, 3 by the Patriots. Now, we just talked about turnovers have been the story of the game. The team who wins the turnover battle wins the game. Well, of course, the Patriots won here. They managed to only have 3 turnovers to the 5 turnovers of the Texans. So even though they sucked at turnovers, they sucked a little bit less than the Texans did. Now, here's the interesting thing. C.J. Stroud is their starting QB of the Houston Texans. Guess how many turnovers he had by halftime?
Can't be like 3.
4.
Oh, wow.
He threw 4 interceptions by halftime of that game.
Wow.
Now, going into halftime, the commentators brought it up. D'Amico Ryans, their head coach, has to be thinking about benching him and putting in their backup. That did not happen. C.J. Stroud came out. He played all through the second half. So kudos to Stroud for getting all of the turnovers out of his system in the first half. He did not turn the ball over in the second half. There was a fumble by the running back, I do believe. Fumbles, turnovers, interceptions. Now, we just said 4 turnovers, 4 interceptions for Stroud in the first half alone against the Patriots. He also had a turnover problem against the previous game, the Pittsburgh Steelers. He threw interceptions in that game as well. Guess how many interceptions he threw in the previous game leading up to this divisional round game?
I hope 2, maybe.
You hope to. That would be nice. Well, that's not really nice. He threw 3 interceptions against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So in literally 6 quarters of football, he had 7 interceptions. 7 interceptions. He was not benched. Now, to be fair, to bench a quarterback in the playoffs, that's a hard decision to make. But given he threw 7 interceptions in 6 quarters, I think that's a pretty good argument as to you need to be benched. And the game was close. It's not like this was a blowout, especially at the halftime. They could have easily benched CJ Stroud and it would have been totally justified. And probably they would have had a better chance of winning going into the second half. But let's compare these 7 interceptions to Josh Allen's 4 turnovers in one game. Josh Allen got, in my opinion, his head coach, Sean McDermott, fired. D'Amico Ryans, I believe, not that he should be fired, but goodness, if you have a quarterback throw 7 interceptions, you go into halftime of game, he's got 4 interceptions in that one half, and you say, you know what, he's our best chance of winning. Either something's wrong with your decision making or you got the wrong guy at quarterback. Mm-hmm. Either CJ Stroud needs to be reevaluated or D'Amico Ryans, their head coach, needs to be reevaluated, because that is inexcusable. 7 interceptions in 6 quarters of football. Unacceptable. All right, let's move on to the last game on Sunday. It was going to be the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Chicago Bears. This was our second overtime game, the last game on Sunday. So we started and ended with overtime games. That was great. These were our 2 best games, in my opinion, the closest games, the most exciting and entertaining games. Looking at the game stats, we see the final score was 20-17, a real close one. Total yards here, 340 to 417 in favor of the Bears. Passing yards, pretty close, 229 to 257 in favor of the Bears. Rushing yards, 111 to 160 in favor of the Bears. And yards per play, 4.4 to 5.1 yards per play in favor of the Bears. So what's really interesting here is that the Bears beat the Rams in every single stat line here. They had more total yards, more passing yards, more rushing yards, more yards per play, but they ended up losing in overtime 20-17. Now, do you want to guess why they lost in overtime 20-17? What's been the theme?
The turnovers.
The turnovers. 3 interceptions. Caleb Williams threw 3 interceptions to the Rams. 0 turnovers. No fumbles. No interceptions. And guess what the difference in the game was? Of course, the interceptions. Of course, the turnovers. So the Rams win it. Even though Caleb Williams and the Bears threw 3 interceptions, they still managed to get into overtime. So valiant effort there. But the Rams are moving on. They are moving on to take on the Seattle Seahawks in an NFC Championship game. On the other side of that, again, it's going to be the Broncos taking on the Patriots. So let's go ahead and make our predictions for the Super Bowl. Who do we have moving on? I think everybody in the United States of America is going to say the New England Patriots are moving on, unless you happen to live in Denver, Colorado. And even then, I seriously doubt you believe the Broncos are making it to the Super Bowl. So let's go Patriots to the Super Bowl. Who are they going to face? The Seahawks or the Rams? Seahawks, number 1 seed. They have an amazing defense. Reminds you of the Legion of Boom. It reminds you of the 2015. I think we're going to see a rematch of 2015. It's going to be the Seahawks taking on the Patriots. And who's going to win that game? Ooh, I don't know. That's a tough one. Drake May, second-year quarterback versus Sam Darnold, the quarterback who has a resurgence career that nobody wanted coming out of New York Jets. That's a tough one. I can't put my faith in Sam Darnold. I'm not sure if I can really put my faith in Drake May in his second season yet. It's going to come down to defense. I don't know who's going to have it. That's a tough one. That's a tough one to pick. I'm going to say, you know what? I'm not going to say who's going to win, but I want the Seahawks to win just because I don't want the goddamn Patriots to get another Super Bowl. I don't want that. They got enough. Good God. Move on.
Even I know that name, the Patriots.
Yes, Patriots. Tom Brady won like a gajillion Super Bowls.
But isn't that the team that has some scandal?
Oh yes, Deflategate.
Yeah.
Yes, spying on the Cincinnati Bengals. Yes, they've been accused of smudging the rules, if you will. But whatever.
A win's a win.
A win is a win, and you know what the saying is: if you're not cheating, you're not trying, right? So. The expectation is, the belief is everybody's cheating to a certain extent. It's just how far can you go before you get caught? And then did you win the game?
Right.
All right. That's our playoff wrap up of the AFC and NFC divisional round. Next week, championship games. 2 weeks from that, the Super Bowl. Can't wait to see what happens. Shout out Sean McDermott and Josh Allen. Have a wonderful day.